I have a secret. When my mother-in-law found out about it, her attitude toward me flipped upside down. "Hey, Shelley." "What?" While the family enjoyed their lunch, I whispered to my mother-in-law's ear, "That's the expensive one you told me about earlier. Is it really good?" As soon as I mentioned, "Grrr," Shelley made a gagging sound and passed out. I'm Nancy, 28 years old. I work as a product developer in a cosmetic company. I met my husband, Eddie, through a mutual friend. It's not like I never had boyfriends before, but I have a secret. When Eddie came to know about it, he remained the same, a kind boyfriend. His family consists of him, his parents, and his younger sister Kim, who lives in another state. They're all nice people, but one incident shatters the harmonious relationship I have with Shelley. They were a tight-knit family who really enjoyed the holiday together, and of course his sister always came back for it, no matter what. My parents say they would really love to have us there. What do you want to do? I was happy to join them as Shelley was like my own mother, and we didn't have a problem then. Of course, I would love to, I answered enthusiastically. Great, I'll tell them we're coming. It's the first time you're staying at my parents' house. I thought, oops, to this nonchalant comment, but I couldn't tell him I suddenly changed my mind. I said to myself, it'll be okay. When we arrived at Eddie's parents', his sister was already back and they welcomed us cheerfully. While we were catching up and relaxing in the living room, "Nancy, darling, go ahead and freshen up if you'd like," Shelley prompted me with a fresh towel, to which I made up my mind. Thank you for letting me take the shower. I found Shelley washing dishes in the kitchen. Of course, are you feeling... What the... She turned to see me and froze. Nancy? Yes, haha, I replied awkwardly. She frowned and walked out of the kitchen. I was disappointed by her reaction and went to find Eddie, who was playing cards with his dad and sister. Hey, hun, you want to join us? I keep losing. Seeing Eddie and me talking as usual, Eddie's dad and sister looked a little surprised. You look different without your makeup. Your skin is like a baby. Kim gave me a compliment. She works in cosmetics and takes good care of herself, unlike you. Eddie's dad teased her. We enjoyed playing cards after that. I was still a little bothered by Shelley's reaction, but I tried to shrug it off. However, my bad feeling came true, and this incident turned her into a malicious mother-in-law who tormented me. I woke up earlier than usual and joined her in the kitchen the next morning. She was already preparing breakfast, and as soon as she saw me, "You're late!" she yelled at me. I was blown away by her sudden change. Shelley, I knew, would have been like, "Listen, Nancy, darling, I want to tell you something." We would have cooked together while we gossiped and laughed, but it was complete silence then. In a very awkward situation, she finally opened her mouth. "You've been hiding your true self from me. You're a totally different person without makeup." I couldn't even explain myself and kept quiet. This was my secret, or more like a trauma I had been carrying. I had kind of a bland face, and even my parents used to say, "Your face is just boring, no character." They sighed heavily looking at my face and repeated it over and over to me. I never got bullied because of my face, but I didn't like the way I looked when I was small. When I became a teenager and my friends started wearing makeup, I joined the trend. When some colors were added to my bland face, I saw a different person in the mirror and regained self-confidence. The reason I chose my career was simple. I liked makeup. I was interested in the products, so instead of being a makeup advisor, I was proud to become a developer. But the person with makeup was just a disguise. Once I met a guy and was told, "Holy crap, you're a scam," when he saw the real me, and he was shocked and dumped me. Looking back on it, I didn't need such a vile man, but at that time, I was quite devastated. On the contrary, Eddie was the total opposite. The reaction I got from him was, "Wow, you're so white. Your skin is like porcelain." To which I asked sheepishly, "Aren't you surprised to see me without makeup?" "Huh? Why? I like you with or without it." I was beyond happy to hear his kind words that I cried. "Thank you, sweetheart." There was no certain look that everyone liked, so I promised myself to treasure the people who liked me as I was. Once I was able to change the way I thought, I was released from the curse that I had been carrying. But the comment of Shelley brought back the old demon that was locked inside of me. "What if you have a baby? It's a shame if the baby came out looking like you." She uttered such a rude thing. "I don't mean to hide anything about me from you. Would you have been happy if I mentioned to you, my face looks different without makeup when we first met?" "I am not saying that, but I feel I've been cheated. You should put yourself in my shoes." She even told me to sympathize with her. I was skeptical of her personality. I used to adore her more than my own mother, but it was so disappointing to see her true nature. We prepared breakfast in silence after that. She acted normal in front of the family. When we were watching TV, Kim said, "I like this actress. You look a bit like her, Nancy." Her comment was a ray of sunshine to my gloomy morning. I liked the actress too, so I was feeling happy. But then, Shelley, who was sitting next to me, mumbled, "So this actress might look different without her makeup." Her voice was so low that I even had a hard time catching it. Seriously? I was really irritated, but if I started yelling at her, everyone else would have thought I went crazy, so I tried to keep calm. From then on, her attitude toward me changed completely. To begin with, she stopped calling me darling or sweetie and just used my name. Furthermore, she even stopped calling my name and just you in the end. "How lucky Eddie is to have such a lovely wife," she used to say, but she started looking down at me. It was as if she was saying I was a fraud and cheating on everyone. Right after I got married, I gave her a collection of skincare products from my work for her birthday. I remembered she once asked me, "Your skin looks so silky. What do you use?" It was quite a high-value gift, but I was happy to see her delighted face. I assumed it was because of the incident, but I received a box from her one day. There was a short message of, "I don't need them," inside the box, along with the products I had given to her. I felt a stub in my chest. Each bottle was half empty, which showed she had been using them until recently. I didn't imagine that she had hated me so much and became depressed that Eddie sensed something was up. "I've been wondering if there was something between you and my mom." I almost told him everything, but I was too ashamed to say that Shelley hated me because I was ugly. She and I used to be so close and went shopping or grabbed lunch together. But since that Christmas, we hadn't gotten in touch. Eddie and his family noticed the sudden change and were worried. I didn't want to be the cause of breaking their harmonious relationship, so I just said, "I'm overwhelmed with work right now. I can't join you, but why don't you go and see them? They'll be happy." I smiled at him. After that, I saw her once during Easter and had never gone back to her house. She pretended everything was normal, but as soon as we were alone, she stopped talking to me. Just let her be. I still have Eddie. She dislikes me, and that's that. As I was busy living my life, Christmas time approached again. Not knowing anything, Eddie said, "I want to spend the holiday with my parents again. Is that okay with you?" He asked innocently with a smile, to which I could only nod in agreement. When we arrived at his parents' house, Kim was already there. When we gathered around the table, we must look like a perfectly happy family from the outside. In truth, the mother-in-law and the daughter-in-law had a fallout. It was what it was. I took a shower late at night so that I didn't need to see Shelley without makeup. On the day after Christmas, "I'm gonna make some lunch. Can you help me, Nancy?" I wasn't called by my name long in a while, so I got excited. "Can you help with mac and cheese?" She pulled out boxes in front of me. "I am sick of cooking after all that for Christmas, so let's take it easy today. We'll make it fancy with shredded cheese on top later." I nodded in agreement. I started boiling water in the pot and was reading the instruction on the boxes. I gasped when I opened one of them. "Hey, Shelley, this one is different from the other." The box had a vintage look, and the illustration was different too. When I looked inside closely, the pasta was the same as the other, but there seemed to be a thin layer of white cotton-like film. Could this be mold? When I stared at it with a dubious look, she said, "Oh, you don't know? This is the expensive one with a truffle. I haven't been nice to you, so I got it just for you as my apology. I'm gonna go lay down a bit, so I'll leave the rest to you." She walked out of the kitchen. "Expensive one." "Lunch is ready." I cheerfully put down bowls of mac and cheese on the table. Shelley, who was sitting next to me, asked, "You haven't mixed it up with others, right?" Whispered into my ear. "Of course not." I muttered likewise. "Let's eat." While everyone dived in, she was giving me a side glance. She seemed to be astounded by the way I was enjoying my bowl of mac and cheese. I whispered to Shelley, who was eating her bowl with a puzzled expression, "Hey, Shelley." "What?" She looked at me with annoyance. "That's the expensive one you told me about earlier. Is it really good?" I intentionally asked with an innocent tone. As soon as I finished, "Grrr." Shelley made a gagging sound and passed out. Everyone else was dumbfounded. Was it a little too much? But, "Honey, wake up!" Eddie's dad shook her shoulders with teary eyes. "Actually," I told them the whole story. Shelley was out for a few minutes. When she woke up, she was dazed for a while, and then dashed to the bathroom. After we heard gasping sounds, we saw her staggering back to the dining room. "You, Nancy." "What?" She was astonished when she saw the box of mac and cheese that was still filled with pasta on the table. Of course, I put it there. You lied to me. Of course, this expired 8 years ago. Who would believe this is an expensive truffle? She kept quiet to my rage. I served her the same mac and cheese as the rest. Of course, it wasn't expired. She totally believed it was the other one when I asked. What a fool. What were you thinking? You were gonna feed her this? Eddie's dad glared at her. I was hoping that you and Nancy can make up this time. Maybe we shouldn't have come. Sorry, honey. As if it was his fault, Eddie looked on the verge of tears. Say something. What were you gonna do if Nancy got really sick? It could have been a serious problem. Kim worked as a nurse, so she took care of Shelley when she passed out. As she mentioned, if I had really eaten that, I was horrified just thinking about it. Shelley started crying amidst all the blame. I was just shocked by Nancy's face. She looked so bland. We were all baffled by her excuse. What's up with my bland face? It's outrageous to be killed just because of it. She wept quietly and started talking. I've been made to feel bad about my face, even though I'm not mad people ask me if I was. In fact, she had a strong feature, but if you talked to her, you would find her funny, and she had a beautiful smile. My late mother-in-law criticized my face all the time. She even said it would be a shame if my child looked like me. I was surprised to hear what she was told were the exact words she used with me. I thought you guys got along. She shook her head to her husband. I couldn't tell anyone even though I was picked on. I wanted to keep peace with the family. When she saw me without makeup, her bad memories came back to her. She thought, what if my baby skipped a generation and took her features, and slipped her mouth to say such a nasty thing. It wasn't just a slip, but she went too far. Did your mother-in-law treat Eddie and Kim badly? She shook her head vigorously as to say never and started wailing. She was very kind to them. Eddie and Kim looked more like their dad. They both got those big eyes, but their nose and mouth surely had traces of Shelley. Besides, whoever they looked like, your kids should be loved. See, it turned out all good. I hope you realize it one day. She was bawling. I was really happy to have a kind mother-in-law. I grew up having somewhat cold parents. I finally understood the meaning of a true family and felt the warmth of being a part of it. As I spoke, tears started rolling down my cheeks. I couldn't say more, but just watched her cry and apologize to me. Eddie and I stopped visiting his parents after that. She kept apologizing, but I wasn't ready to let go and move on yet. As for Shelley, I am too ashamed to go and see Nancy anymore, she told her family. Eddie and I returned home right after that, but Eddie's dad and Kim supposedly scolded her afterward. She even told her husband, "Please divorce me," in the end. She had been undoubtedly a beloved member of the family, and her husband regretted he had put all the responsibilities in regards to family matters on her shoulders in the past. He came to realize that when he retired, and he had been more attentive to Shelley since then, they went for a walk in the park and took short trips together to make up for the lost time. Eddie and Kim rolled their eyes at the bout, but they must be relieved that their parents didn't decide on a divorce. As for Eddie and me, we kept busy with work, but we were still so much in love and spent happy days together. 2 years after the incident, I gave birth to a healthy girl. It took a while for me to conceive, and I had to deal with painful injections. Eddie and I had a few quarrels over pregnancy as well. The morning sickness was severe that I was bound to bed all day sometimes. But all these negative things just flew out the window as soon as I held my daughter in my arms. A few days after the delivery, Eddie's family came to see us. "So cute! I'm your auntie." "Oh, how adorable! I'm your grandpa." Both Eddie's dad and Kim were immediately head over heels. There was one more person at the door. "Honey, what are you doing? Don't just stand there and come and meet the baby." "Hi, Nancy. Congratulations. You did well." Shelley walked into the room with an awkward and apologetic expression. "Please, Shelley, you can hold her. Her name is Beatrice. It means one who brings happiness. We call her Birdie. Eddie and I hope she spreads happiness to everyone." Shelley picked her up with a big smile on her face. "Sweet Birdie, your eyes are like Eddie's, and your nose, mouth, and ears are like Nancy's. You're white as snow. I can't apologize enough for things I've done to you, Nancy. I'm such an idiot. I'm really sorry." Tears started rolling down her cheeks, and my eyes too were watering. I knew then we could start over and build a stronger relationship.
"How much did you get to inherit?"
Huh? My husband Simon asked me that on the night of my father's funeral.
"I heard that your father had an inheritance of $3 million. So once again, I'm asking you, how much did you get to inherit?"
I instantly had a bad feeling in the back of my mind when he asked me this question while I was still recovering from my grief, so I lied. "It's 0. I don't get to inherit anything. It seems like my sister and my mother only got the inheritance." Hearing this, Simon gave out a huge smile.
"Oh, I knew it! Your parents tell us that you are incompetent and didn't love you at all for sure. I'm glad that my instincts were correct.
What?
I want a divorce. I can't deal with you being poor now. I've already decided who I'm going to marry again, so I want you to just get out of my life now."
Then, Simon had made me sign the divorce papers. My husband and his family laughed at me for being miserable, but unfortunately, they are all wrong. People will never understand how happy I was when Simon actually betrayed me. My name is Jane. My family is a family of 4, and I have a younger sister named Kim, but Kim and I never got along well with each other since we were very young. My mother, Anne, was always taking Kim's side and defending her at every opportunity, which made me feel really lonely, even though I got used to it in the end. My father, Dan, who was the only one who was on my side and could help me, was always busy with work and rarely spent time at home. Even though I was always at home, I was tormented by loneliness during my childhood. My life at home had never changed even when I became an adult. I wasn't allowed to go to college because of the tuition fees. But after I got a job, I heard that Kim was going to enroll into a private college.
Kim is very bright, and it would be a waste if we didn't let her go to college at all. Jane, you're not at all sharp or smart, so unlike my Kim, it would definitely be a big waste for you to go there. Since you are already an adult who has a job, you should put some money into this house. And, in addition to that, you should also pay for Kim's tuition fee. You are her big sister, so it's only natural that you should work for her and support her. My mother says such nonsense things as if they were common sense to her. I had always put up with unfair things, but this made me furious, and tears began to run down my face. Seeing this, Kim looked at me unpleasantly and tells me this. It's your own fault that you're incompetent, isn't it? You're uglier than me, and you get worse grades than me, so you should at least try harder to be better, you know? If you can't even do that, then you're just seriously worthless.
I got so fed up with this kind of toxic family environment, so I left my parents' house when I began to work. Since I was forced to do house chores on a daily basis, living alone was not at all hard for me, and in fact, it felt great to be able to be all on my own. In the beginning, my father sent me a little money to help out, but after about 6 months, he stopped sending me some money. Instead, I received a letter from my mother.
It seems that your father has been sending money to you without any permission, but you have no right to receive it because you have never paid your sister's school fees or send any money to us. I'll send you an invoice for all the amount you received from your father later on, so make sure to refund all the money. Stop being a thief. My mother, who continues to hate me, sent me an invoice that was calculated in exact amount as alimony for me to refund the amount. I was very uncomfortable to talk and argue about it any further, so I did as I was told, sent the money, and secretly moved to another apartment. A few years later, I got married to Simon, whom I met at work. I decided to take this opportunity to cut ties with my parents for good, so I went back to my parents' house to inform them about my marriage. I returned to my parents' house to inform the news, only to find that my father, who had always been working very hard, aged a lot and looked very old. I didn't expect his waist to be bent that much, and it looked like it was hard for him to even stand up. Oh, so you're back. I wonder what this ungrateful girl who doesn't even send any money home to her parents is doing here.
When I asked my mother about my father, she snickered at me.
Your father had a back injury in the past year or so, and he can't work anymore. It's bad enough that he has to always stay home and get in my way all the time, but it's worse because he's too lazy to move around on his own. Now, he's just as useless as you, Jane.
Simon was surprised to hear my mother say this, but his eyes lit up when he saw my sister, Kim.
Whoa, are you Jane's sister? You are very beautiful. I can't really believe that you and Jane are sisters.
Kim had become even more selfish since she entered college, and now she was wearing luxurious clothes and had such a flashy hair color that it looked quite embarrassing knowing that she's an adult. She is old enough that she should have already graduated from college, but she still seems to be a student, which also shows her attitude towards studying in college.
This guy is your husband, Jane? Well, he's pretty cool and handsome. He doesn't match with you at all, Jane. And I actually feel sorry for you, Simon. My sister was intentionally talking sweetly to Simon and making body touches with him in a way that I could see. I didn't like that either, but it was much more painful to see Simon looking so happy and excited to be treated like that from Kim. Anyways, I don't intend to stay here long. I'm going to marry Simon. I'm going to cut off my ties with you all.
Well, if you're going to cut me off, can you do it after I'm done taking care of your father?
My mother said in a tiresome way as she was eating her snacks. I need to take care of him, but I don't want to do that at all. And I don't want Kim to go through that kind of hardship either. It's her college life after all, and it would be a pity to make her spend all her time on such a trivial, annoying matter, right? So, you should be responsible and be the one to take care of your father, Jane. You and your father are both incompetent, so you both would get along very well with each other. The way my mother said this made me very angry, but I couldn't ignore about taking care of my father for my father's sake. From that day on, I had to go to my parents' house frequently to take care of my father. After I started taking care of my father, I realized that neither my mother nor my sister worked. Kim doesn't do any part-time job, and my mother has always stayed at home since my father collapsed. And yet, they both tend to eat out at restaurants and shopped a lot. To my surprise, they took my father's bank book without his permission and spent their savings as if it was a normal thing to do. My father knew about it, but he kept quiet. Dad, they'll continue to do this if we don't do something about it, you know. If you knew about this, why didn't you tell me right away?
Even if I told you, Jane, they would never think that they did something wrong and apologize about it. So, I didn't want this to be a burden to you in any way. I've already put you through so much.
My father was always working, but it was for the sake of our family. He was the only one in the family who loved me very much. I wanted to just help him somehow. Just as I was thinking of a way to do so, I received a call from the hospital where my father had been taken since he had collapsed. Before heading to the hospital, I hurried to my parents' house. My mother and sister were both watching TV, looking unworried and concerned. The hospital called me. Father collapsed, didn't he? Why are you both just sitting still? What an exaggeration to even say that he collapsed. He just fell down in the hallway and hit his head. The ambulance took him to the hospital, so I'll leave the rest to you. We need to go to the hospital. I'm worried about Father. Shut up. If he doesn't make it, then the insurance will pay for it. What are you getting so emotional about? My mother just said that and turned her gaze back to the TV again. Disgusted, I left them both and headed for the hospital. At the hospital, my father was lying in bed, hooked up to various tubes, and he was barely conscious. As he was losing consciousness, my father noticed me and let out a faint voice.
I'm sorry for being so sudden. I'm sure I'm just being punished. I was an unfit father because I couldn't protect you from our family.
With saying these as his last words, my father closed his eyes. I don't care about that. Dad, I love you, so please get well soon, okay? I desperately held my father's hand at his bedside,
but he never held it back again. A week later, I received a call from a lawyer who had my father's will. He told me that the will contained information about my father's inheritance.
According to the will, you, Jane, is to inherit $3 million.
$3 million? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. In fact, it seemed that there was another bank book that my father had hidden apart from the savings book my mother had taken from me, in which $3 million were being kept. He also wrote a note that he would not tell any other family members about this. I guess this was his own way of trying to take care of me after I inherited the money. I was again moved by my father's kindness. Then, I had to go back to my parents' house to retrieve the hidden bank book. Then, my mother and sister were waiting for me at the front door, standing like they were the queens of the house.
What are you doing here now?
Did you come to scavenge for things because Dan died? How despicable.
Everything in the house is mine and my mother's to inherit. This house, the car, everything. So don't come here like a thief.
I could never talk about my inheritance with these people who would never even try to listen to me. Wait a minute. I'm just here to collect Father's memorabilia. Besides, shouldn't I inherit at least a small share? Then, my mother pulled out a document and showed it to me. It was another will. The will said that my mother and sister would inherit all of my father's estate. It was written, but the handwriting was clearly my sister's handwriting. It was hard to believe that it was the handwriting of my father, who had a very unique, distinct handwriting. I couldn't really read the will very well since Kim didn't have a really good handwriting. Are you trying to say that this is Father's will?
Your thoughts won't matter because this is the will.
I have already informed all the details to all our relatives, and all the neighbors know about it too. It's impossible to accuse anything now. My mother wouldn't even let me take a step into the house, knowing that I knew that this was a fake will. When I gave up and went home that day, Simon was waiting for me at home.
Were you at your parents' house? If you had told me, I would have gone with you too. What a shame. I wanted to see Kim.
Why are you so concerned, and how is any of this related to you, Simon? I went there to receive Father's inheritance, but they both kicked me out.
Wow. How much did you all get to inherit from your father?
I don't know how much it is in total, but the house, land, and everything was all in his name, so the total amount must be pretty significant.
I see. Then how much is your share of the inheritance, Jane?
That's... After saying that much, I closed my mouth. I shouldn't tell him the truth here. My instincts told me that. There was no inheritance for me. It was going to be split between just my mother and sister. Hearing this, Simon suddenly brought the divorce papers from his room and presented them to me.
I knew it! I knew you wouldn't get to inherit anything! You really are hated by that family. Well, with a perfect sister like that, no wonder, huh? But being inherited with nothing, I mean, how much do they hate you? I want a divorce now because there's nothing in it for me if we stay together. Actually, I've been in touch with your sister Kim a lot lately. And to be honest, you're just in my way.
Simon had already signed his part on the divorce papers. So, of course, I signed the papers right away. I tried hard not to smile as I watched Simon's back as he happily took the divorce papers to the city office. This would probably be the last time I would see Simon smile like that. And that includes my mother and my sister too. This was the moment when karma bit back to those who had been tormenting my father and I for all these years. Later that day, I consulted with the lawyer who had taken care of my father's will and asked him to come with me to my parents' house. There, when I showed both my mother and my sister the real will, their usual relaxed expressions turned blue, and they read it over and over again.
That's a lie! I have a will over here that properly states that only Kim and I would inherit.
Then let's do a handwriting analysis. If you say that the fake one was made intentionally, then you be charged with fraud. Will that be alright with you?
When the lawyer said that, my mother was at a loss for words to reply.
I have also heard from Dan about a lot of other things. I heard that even after his health deteriorated, you abandoned him and stopped taking care of him, sold all his possessions without any permission, and did whatever you wanted to do. And Kim was addicted to playing around with men and gambling, and paid off all the debts she made out from his personal bank book without any permission. Because of such malicious behavior, you both have been excluded from any inheritance rights. If you further unfairly violate Jane's inheritance rights, we intend to file a lawsuit against you both as well.
By the time the lawyer finished speaking, both my mother and sister were sitting there in despair. In the meantime, I decided to collect my father's hidden bank book and leave my parents' house. With this, I was finally completely free from my family. After that, Simon, who knew nothing about it, apparently confessed to my sister to go out with him. Then, my mother and sister, who kept all the inheritance issues as a secret from him, immediately married him in order to make him pay for their living expenses and for him to become an ATM machine to them. Then, without being told the truth, he apparently bought several luxury cars and quit his job in order to rely on their inheritance. After some time, Simon noticed something strange. Finally, he had realized that they had no inheritance and rushed to contact me.
Jane, I was wrong. You're all I have. I want to start over.
Well, I don't need you. And besides, you have Kim now. You have to take care of your wife properly, okay? I only told him that and gently hung up the phone. In fact, a few minutes before Simon called, I had received a call from Kim as well.
You've ruined my life. Simon quit his job and went on a shopping spree like a fool as soon as he and I got married. I can't believe that a man who only cares about money became my husband. Because of him, my family name is ruined. So, what are you going to do about it?
I spoke slowly to my sister, who was screaming hysterically. Kim, you're the one who is only interested in money too, just like him. I think you're a matching couple, you know. Besides, I heard that you and Simon got along very well while Simon and I were married. You should just be happy with the fact that your love came true. I'll file a claim for compensation for the affair later, though, okay? From now on, let's contact each other through our lawyers. I never, ever want to hear from you again.
Hey! I'm your sister and you're not even treating me like a family?
Ha! Don't make me laugh. You're the one who didn't treat me like family. Saying that, I hung up on my sister. I blocked her calls and never heard from her again. I was finally free. Now, I built a house with my father's inheritance and moved into it. I have found a new job as an office clerk, and I'm enjoying a busy but fulfilling life on my own. Sometimes I do feel lonely, but I have my family to take care of me. I'm going now, Dad. I felt my father smiling gently over me as I looked the picture of my father on the wall of my house.